So, have you ever felt like you watched a multi-million-dollar therapy session? Let's talk about teenage sex and death at Camp Miasma. So, with that out of the way, I know that's a very reductive way to start off a video, and it's a little attention grabber headline. But I actually am quite glad that I saw this movie versus Mutiny, because that was the other one that I was going to think about. Because realistically, okay, I got a Jason Statham movie where Jason Statham plays Jason Statham doing Jason Statham things. It'd be like talking about a shark movie. Like, if you watch a shark movie, there's a couple of things that you expect to happen. This one shark is going to eat like 27 people, and that's not going to make much sense because, sharks only eat like once a week at best. And then, just other random things like that. You're sort of expecting it. So I would see Jason Statham doing Jason Statham things in a Jason Statham movie. Whereas teenage sex and death in Camp Miasmic is very clearly a movie that wants to do more. And I honestly, I was one of two people in the theater, so this movie's not going to do well at all. No one's going to see this. However, this is one of those movies where probably 20 years after the fact, it's going to be considered like a Halloween classic, and there's going to be articles written up about the untold genius of it, and so on and so forth, blah, 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 blah. It's a smart movie, and I don't think there's really a way for any marketing campaign to actually establish what this movie actually is. It's not really a throwback slasher movie. It's not really a deconstruction of throwback slasher movies. It's not really a meta-narrative of slasher movies, etc., etc. It is basically a coming-of-age story. It is the sexual awakening of an asexual person. That's it. That's the movie. This movie really is not in the same category of Sleepaway Camp or Friday the 13th or Halloween. No. This is Harold and Maude. Okay? This is... Do I put the Dreamers or E2 Mama Tambien in here? But maybe blue is the warmest color. That movie. It's a romance movie masquerading as something else. Okay? And I really wouldn't even say it's like I would put blue as the warmest color, way higher on the actual emotion and love and whatever sort of scale. I would put E2 Mama or Tambien. But the point being is that it's very much not what any type of advertisement is going to try to explain it to you. This is one of those films that cannot be explained in a trailer. This is one of those movies where, no, I don't even know if this happened in the 80s. I don't think people would have gotten it in the 80s either. I don't think it would have done well in the 80s. It would have been different in the 80s, but it would have been... Point being, let's dissect it in numerous parts, okay? So, storyline-wise, not much actually happens. Storyline-wise, a writer is tasked with rebooting a classic horror series that was problematic and, fell out of time, much like Sleepaway Camp. People remember it, but then it fell away, because, anyone who's watched Sleepaway Camp and knows what Angela really is, and it's not Angela, it's blah, 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 blah. Everyone kind of knows that Sleepaway Camp is really a terrible representation of trans identity or trans people. There's the movie literally has, the main villain's mother basically gaslight a boy into becoming a girl. That's apparently something you can do in this universe, if you just dress a boy up like a girl a number of times, eventually they'll just start believing they're a girl. That's not how transitioning works in any way, shape, or form. It has nothing to do with that. And I say this as someone who knows numerous trans people. No. However, you also get to the point where a bunch of trans people love Sleepaway Camp and love Angela, and Angela's like a trans icon, even though it's like the worst possible depiction outside of Buffalo Bill, who there's one line where, Hannibal Lecter says, well, Buffalo Bill's not really trans. Even though the rest of the movie kind of spits in the face and just has Buffalo Bill do all these horrible things, and all people realize is Buffalo Bill's building a woman's suit, and it's like a rape story where it's like, rape is bad, which is why we're going to spend 45 minutes on the rape scene in all the detail possible. Like, okay, you're saying one thing, but you're doing another. There's a lot of that in horror movies, We're actually pro-woman. Now watches every woman gets naked and, acts only as the dumb bimbo for, people to jerk off to. The actual characters with agency here are zero. Even if you go to like early Friday the 13th movies, the final girl, generally speaking, does not have a reason to be the final girl. They're not competent, they're not better, they're not doing anything. Like the first movie, either first or second, I can't remember, the only reason they're alive is because they were at a bar and everyone at the camp gets slaughtered. The only reason they're the final girl is because they just weren't in the movie for 35 minutes. They just weren't there. That's not because of a main character. That's just because of happenstance. Okay? So there's a lot of old horror movies that realistically are badly written. Okay? So this movie is a person coming to go and reboot a horror movie, and they go to speak to the original final girl of the series. By the way, when I'm saying the term final girl, for those of you that aren't a fan of horror movies or slasher movies from the 80s, generally speaking, there's one survivor at the end of a horror movie, it's a female, and they're the final girl. And people argue and debate who's the best final girl in which series, and sometimes it's final man, final boy, whatever, or there's two or three, but generally speaking, if there's one, there's a final girl. So that's just insider lingo, and there's a lot of insider lingo in this movie, okay? There's a lot of inside baseball. But anyway, so she goes, finds the original actress, and basically they watch the movie together. And during watching the movie, the main character realizes that, they're really turned on by watching a slasher movie. And then the slasher happens, and the end. There's really only like 3 scenes in this entire movie. Okay, stuff happens, but it doesn't really happen. There's very minimal plot going on. What there is a lot of metaphor and different themes and subtext and different stuff that it's trying to do. And we're going to break down the different stuff that it's doing or trying to do, and I'm going to just give my opinion on each and every one of those things. Okay? That's where we are with this movie. So yeah. If that sounds like it's your thing, if you want to watch the sexual awakening of an asexual, polyamorous, lesbian, which they're asexual lesbian. Okay, so they're that wouldn't be ace. That would be demisexual because there's a specific emotion attached to it. Never mind. If that movie sounds like something for you, it'll probably be $5 on streaming in like a week. I don't think this movie's doing well, but you know what? Go see it if it sounds like that's the thing for you. Now I will dissect the numerous different lenses that this movie can be viewed in, because there's not one lens at this point. This movie is very distinctly a different lens movie. So, lens number 1, the throwback slasher movie. It misses the mark as a throwback slasher movie. No, really, it's not. And, I know they pull out New Nightmare by Wes Craven in here, and I will agree that New Nightmare is probably the second or third best Nightmare on Elm Street movie ever made. I do blame Wes Craven for this. Not because of New Nightmare, but because of Scream. And Scream started the whole debate of, well, only the virgin lives in the... No, 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 no. Go back and watch the original, 80s slasher movies. That's not true. And they never attack the disabled. No. Very distinctly, there's a person in Friday the 13th in a wheelchair who gets a machete to the face and then rolls backwards down the steps. Yeah, no, 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 no. So Scream started this whole generation of, self-referential horror movies, where to the point where, like, even stuff like Cabin in the Woods, and I'm just like, okay, this doesn't make any fucking sense at this point. You're telling me that every horror movie is actually real, and those people actually died? What about the people who died in one movie, and then starred in a later movie? Sorry, Viggo Mortensen, there's absolutely no Lord of the Rings in this universe. You died in one of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequels. Johnny Depp never became Captain Jack Sparrow. He just up and died in first Nightmare on Elm Street. None of this shit happens. It's just stupid. So yeah, I do blame, and I do get sick and tired of it. But okay, so as a throwback to an 80s slasher movie, if you're gonna do a throwback to the 80s slasher movies, actually look like an 80s slasher movie. Like there's numerous times, like there's fountains of blood, and I get it. They're doing the cheesy fountain of blood, spewing everywhere, spraying. There's like gallons upon gallons shooting out of a hose or whatever. Except it's CG. Like, no, that's not what an 80s slasher movie would have done because they didn't have CG. Like, you see someone get sucked into a bed of Nightmare on Elm Street, and then there's just a fountain of blood erupting for 30 seconds straight. Oh my god, there's blood everywhere. What's going on? Oh my god. Yeah, like, it might have been a miniature, it might have been this, it might have been that, but the point being, it was a practical effect. We know what it was. It was real liquid. It had a certain way it looked in the light. It had a certain way that gravity affected it. CG can't replicate that. If you CG a waterfall, it's gonna look, a water fountain, it's going to not move the way an actual water fountain moves. So yeah, so just little things like that. Like, okay, cool, you have a painted background of a forest. Can you see the trees? No, of course you can't see the trees. It's all glaring light. Yeah, the 80s slasher movies just filmed in an actual forest. There was no painted trees. So yeah, it's just, like, really, just, I understand, they all took place in nighttime, and obviously the main characters were somehow always in perfect light. So yeah, there was just trees and a spotlight of some sort, or some sort of lighting rig. But yeah, just film it at night in a forest. Film in an actual forest. Just little things like that. Okay? And if you look up the IMDb stuff where it's like, oh my god, this gratuitous sex scene and blah, 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 it's like, it's one pair of breasts. And it's not even the interesting pair of breasts. Okay? For a movie that has a sex scene of a character that's, 20-something-year-old and another character who is 60-something-year-old in universe. I don't know what the actual actress is. Actors. I guess actresses is not a term we use anymore. If you have a lesbian sex scene where, according to IMDb, there's fingering involved and it's gratuitous. No, having hand off camera doing whatever, clear, yeah, it's not gratuitous. Like, this is not 80s slasher movie here, okay? Like, no. There was full-on, full frontal nudity so much in the Friday the 13th movies where it was kind of a joke. Like, why are all these people naked just swinging off of a rope into a river? Why? Like, because we need to kill time. Like, realistically, a lot of the Friday the 13th movies were early, it's like, Jason kills people in a barn. People just keep walking into the barn and dying. While other people who have no idea what's happening are just doing whatever the heck they're doing. There's no actual reason for any of the scenes to happen or occur. So they do that. They also do the other thing of a self-referential movie where they reference a better movie. Like, like, oh, you referenced Part 6. You referenced Jason Lives. That's actually a really good one. Like, that really is. That really, really, really is a much better movie. It's also the movie where the Friday the 13th series realized it was a comedy. Like, the first scene after Jason awakens from a bolt of lightning, like he's Dr. Frankenstein, it just zooms in on his eye, and in his eye there's Jason walking across, like the James Bond intro, slashes at the camera, and blood shoots at the camera to have the credits roll. That's a movie that knows what it is. The characters literally have the word dead on them when they die in a, little, like, company paintball game. And, they know. That movie knows what it is. Same with, like, Jason X, where it's like, a guy dies, and there's just a giant screw, and he starts spiraling down it. What happened to Smith? He's screwed, sir. Like, every single character in that movie is a piffy one-liner. That movie knows how dumb it is. It loves itself for being that dumb, So if you're going to reference Part 6... Also, Part 6, notoriously the Jason movie with zero nudity. So, when this movie tries to go and say, there's nothing deep about Friday the 13th, there's nothing deep about Camp Miasmic. It's just about sex. It's just about flesh and fluids. You reference the one movie that very distinctly had no flesh. Like, okay, like, if you're going to reference... Ooh, that would have been interesting. If you're going to reference a horror movie that is very distinctly about sex, Hellraiser. The Lament Configuration. Come on, the entire movie is about the sexual awakening of, or heck, you might as well go with anything with Clive Barker. Rawhead Rex is the same thing. Rawhead Rex is literally just a rape monster. That's literally all it is. It's literally a giant evil penis going around raping people. Go ahead, make a Rawhead Rex reference. Yeah, but yeah, no, yeah, they're not doing that. So, yeah, if you're going to reference, like, really good movies, like, like, how many dinosaur movies reference Jurassic Park? And all you're left with is, man, I would really much rather be watching Jurassic Park. Like, Jurassic Park's a much better movie. Yeah, like, don't do it. Don't do it. It's a terrible idea. So, as a self-referential horror movie, I don't think it's good. Now, as a commentary on horror movies, I also don't think it's really that good. Because, once again, it says, like, oh, the only appeal of Friday the 13th, or the only appeal of 80s slasher movies was to see a pair of tits. No! Not really! I mean, like I already mentioned, the comedy aspect of Part 6, The idea that these are just people being judged or whatever is also a very common, thing that people throw out there where it's like, oh, these are people being, tortured for their sins or whatever, and Jason or Freddy or whoever is like a karmic deity to, punish them in the eyes of the author or whatnot. Like, there's many different lenses horror movies have been thrown under. You're being very selective here about what you think is the true meaning of horror movies. Now, it does throw out there the idea of, like, well, the thing that I loved the most about this movie was that moment where, I saw in your eyes, and it's like, okay, so first and foremost, in universe, that means these two characters were actually having sex because, surprise, surprise, there's like some Cthulhu mythos going on where the movie is actually real and the characters that are making the movie are the ones that are actually fictional. So, in the universe of this movie, those characters were actually having sex on film because they actually had sex, and the whole production was just made up. Like, these were the actual events that happened. Then, of course, then you also mean that people literally got stabbed to the chest and then woke up and were perfectly fine and not dying. Which, how every single movie in this franchise has that ending then? Or what this creature actually is, because... So this creature exists only to get people who have a really difficult time having sex to enjoy sex. And that's the lesson? Like... So it's basically just a very helpful thing, like helping people get over their mental block, which is also very reductive of asexual people, because it's like, oh no, you just haven't had the right man. Like, this is literally the film version of, oh no, baby, it's okay, you just haven't had the right man yet. I understand you don't like sex, it's painful for you, whatever. It's gonna be different with me. Like, okay, yeah, that's not as progressive as you think it is, but okay, sure, whatever. For a movie that likes to throw out the term, like, that literally tries to explain the wokeness of whatever and the sexual whatever. Here's the thing. I can actually explain this, because it's actually been known for quite a long time. There's a reason why sexuality and horror go hand in hand. It's the same part of the brain. Fear and excitement is the same part. It's the amygdala. Like, this is actually not that difficult of a concept. Like, there's a reason why H.R. Giger made all his characters that eventually inspired Alien to look very sexual. Because sex and fear are of the same part of the brain. There it is. We've known this for many, many, many years. Okay? We've mapped this part out. We've mapped out what part stimulates that. That's a reason why, a lot of people have a horror kink, or a predator-prey kink, or a CNC kink, or whatever. And yes, people are afraid to talk about it because, people don't want to go and say, I actually like the idea of being raped. But not, like, from a stranger, like, from someone that I trust, and it's like, yeah, I understand. You have a hang-up on this, I get it. We actually can explain why this is a thing. It's not unheard of, So there's that. Anyway, I'm 13 minutes. I should probably stop this point right here and next point, or continue this point before the audio goes too out of sync. So, whenever a horror movie or any movie tries to be let me put it this way. There's a lot of Halloween movies, but there's really only two stories that ever has been told for Halloween. The day Michael Myers came back. And why did Michael Myers come back? And quite frankly, the why aspect of Halloween has always been stupid. Because they start going like, it's his long-lost daughter. Really? How does he know that? He just instinctually recognized, daughter. His long-lost sister, or daughter, or relative, or whatever. Really? How does he know this? Really? He just has psychic senses. Oh, there's a thorn cult. Got it. Yeah, the ancient druids using Celtic runes control the... Yeah, that's just dumb. Or his bizarre psychic powers. Or, in the case of, like, Halloween Kills, where it's like, no, there is no reason. He's just going home. Well, then why was he not home at the start of the next movie? Oh, he's only going home. Except for the time he decides to hang out in a sewer for the next 15 years. And there's a meaning, like, all the people, we're just as bad as Michael Myers because we're the ones that want vengeance. Which is why Michael Myers specifically killed the one person that was not getting vengeance and was trying to stop the mob. Yeah, like, the explain. And then of course Michael Myers is a curse, and he just senses evil because that's a thing that Michael Myers does. And I know there's people that are going to be like, well, Michael Myers has always been supernatural. He stabbed a knife in a guy, and the knife stayed there, and he's up against the wall. Michael Myers is superhuman. No, the laws of physics don't work like that. Even assuming Michael Myers could lift up a person who, okay, it's 120 pounds. Okay, first and foremost, you can lift up 120 pounds, okay? You can fucking do that. But, because it was a skinny guy. But you know what? Screw it. It's a 200-pound person. It's a 200-pound person, and you stab it with a butcher knife in the wall. Okay, so the knife that's yay big has to go through yay big of human, which means only this much is sticking in the actual wall. First and foremost, you're probably going to hit drywall, okay? It's not like there's an entire wall of wood behind this, okay? Like, there's only very thin, like, that far width bars of wood that are called a stud that you can even hit, okay? So you're going to go through drywall, and going through drywall might as well be like going through a piece of paper. You're not having a knife yay thick with, 200 pounds of weight on it stick into drywall. And even if you were to hit the wood, and let's just say you actually really somehow wedged it in the wood, all of this was actually in, you're still only talking about a couple of inches in the wood, at best, with 200 pounds and gravity pointing down. The reason that person stuck in a wall was not because Michael Myers was superhuman. The reason that person stuck into a wall is because the knife defies all physics. Are there any theories about the knife being supernatural in Halloween? No. The reason why Michael Myers picks up a guy and stabs him and they stays there is because it's a cool looking shot. Okay? It looked cool. That's it. The script said so. Why are the velociraptors in Jurassic Park 8 feet tall? Because it looks cool. An actual velociraptor-sized velociraptor would not be scary. That's it. And yes, I realize it's Deinonychus, not Velociraptor. That's another reason. They picked the name Velociraptor because Velociraptor sounded cooler. That's it. So no, Michael Myers is not supernatural. And the fact that Michael Myers has to have some sort of supernatural reason why he did things really ruins the entire point of Michael Myers. That it's just a guy. That no one knows why. Why did that person get picked on? Why did that person become the stalker's person they're fixated on? Because it just happened to be them. That's it. The point is that it's just terrifying because there's no rhyme or reason to it. That's the point of the original Halloween. Now, yes, he got shot 6 times. I shot him 6 times. I shot him 6 times and he got up with the devil's eyes. And yeah, it's a horror movie. Guy can get decapitated and he'll somehow be back because it's a horror movie. But, you're missing the fucking point. Like, if we treat everything that happens in Halloween as legit, somehow, the couple in the beginning of the movie, like, in the time it takes young Michael just put on a mask and grab a knife, all of 5 seconds, they went upstairs, had sex for like an hour, because, oh my god, that was such a long time, blah, 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 and they changed clothes, and, so they got naked, had sex, got their clothes back on, left, and the other person's combing their hair after the fact and had a shower and whatnot. All in the span, like, okay, no. We've reached the point where Batman somehow has had, like, 18 different Robins, yet he's only gone from age, 25 to 27, where Dick Grayson has gone from age 12 to 27. Like, wait, we have time scales that don't match up here in this movie. Like, literally, there's a part in the first Halloween movie where a guy literally only has, like, 4 pumps in him, like while they're having sex, and it's like, oh my god, that was amazing. Amazing. He literally humped you like, and he's done. That was it. That was the amazing sex you had. Okay. Okay. Sure. No. We're supposed to timescale Halloween. We're supposed to go, okay, that scene actually really lasted, like 25 minutes, but they're not showing all 25 minutes of it because, it's kind of boring just seeing this happen for 25 minutes straight. I mean, seriously, people, how much of a porn do people actually watch? Hey, we saw the first scene, and there was already a cum shot, and there was already a cream pie, and I'm done. Well, there's still 85 minutes left in this movie. Like, I'll watch scene 2 another time. No, realistically speaking here, you don't, no one actually watches the full length of a porn. No one, and we should not contribute reality to a horror movie, Not every single thing in Halloween is legit, okay? So yeah, basically trying to explain Halloween is stupid and futile, which I know the movie tries to go into, like, death and camp and, sex and death at Camp Miasma also goes like, oh, there's no point to trying to, explain a horror movie. Which is its one, it has its get out of jail free card. The entire movie is going, it's about this, it's about that. Don't ask me what this is about. And then one line that says, oh no, you can't think about it. You just have to feel it, or whatever. It's like, once again, hi, we have a 45-minute rape scene here, but we're not about rape. Really? Well, then why did you have a 45-minute rape scene? Come on, I spit on your grave. Come on. Why does this scene why does half the movie need to be this one scene? Couldn't we cut away? Do a shot of a pained face and going, oh my god, agony, cut to black or whatever? You ran out of other scenes to do, huh? Okay, cool. So, yeah. As that movie goes, it's actually I don't find it necessarily to be a good horror movie, but then again, it's not really trying to be a horror movie. And the other half of this movie, the love story, is actually the thing that I'm more interested in, and I thought was a far better film. So after the jump cut, we'll talk about the actual love story in this. So, the other half of this movie, the part that's not just referencing other horror movies or going, oh look, we're kind of like this, we're kind of like that, it's a horror cliche to do this. The other half of this movie is actually really good and interesting, and I would much have rather had that plot just be itself. An artist, that had their sexual awakening watching a horror movie sex scene. Okay. And this awakening realized to them that they were gay. Which, okay, you watch straight sex and realized you were gay. Okay, cool, there's something we can unpack there. Go and meet your idol, 40 years after the fact. So now you have the age gap dynamic play of, like, the 20-something lesbian watching the presumably straight 60-something-year-old. And their relationship and how, they find themselves, and this person agrees to come back into acting because, they also had a very harrowing and horrifying experience on the set of that movie. So, that's why they went away from acting for a while. And it's two people that were lost and found themselves. And it's a very atypical romance. One, because of the age gap. Two, because of, just the taboo-ness of it, which, even in the day and age, going, oh, it's a lesbian romance. is gonna put some people on edge, you know. And then even then, it's like the person also already has a relationship, so it's kind of cheating, maybe? Even though that person claims to be polyamorous, you know. But then again, they're not the one that has the extra thing on the side. Their partner has the extra thing on the side, so are they really polyamorous, or are they confused? And by the way, anyone who's poly, get ready for a lot of this in the upcoming years, because mainstream media has finally figured out we exist. and you're going to get a bunch of non-poly people trying to write something about poly, much like how, you know, a bunch of not gay people were trying to write stuff about gay people, and how, like, a bunch of not black people were trying to write stuff about black problems in the city or whatnot. Yeah, get ready for polyamory to be the next thing that people are like, ooh, we don't understand what this actually is. Okay, cool. But anyway, but the point being, there's a relationship there. And there is, like, a true and honest, you know, discovery of themselves there. And I would have much rather have just had that movie. Here's these two people who are lost, and they have found each other. That is the movie that I would have rather seen. I was much more invested in their love story. So yeah. Now, I have no idea what the director and writer and whatnot have done for anything else, and trying to throw a complete high beam, yes. Trying to throw author intent on something is always a terrible, terrible thing to do. And yes, I realized I started this video saying that I watched a multi-million-dollar therapy session. It's kind of a clickbaity thing to do. But yeah, no. It very much reads like someone who is very confused about themselves, and this was their outlet to try and explain it. So I can very easily see that in the next 20 years, there's going to be articles of this going like, this was the trans identity movie, this was the thing that inspired a bunch of people to come out of the closet or whatnot. And does it have everything right? No, probably not, no. A, because everyone's sexuality is different, and B, you know, I mean, it clearly did not understand polyamory, but, you know, whatever. But yeah, you're literally licking poop bags. You're literally licking plastic poop bags, and that's going to come up on the audio. They're gonna hear that. They're gonna hear the plastic licking. You little girl, you silly little bean. But yeah, no. So yeah. But yeah, so that's really it. As far as I was much more interested in the love story, and for a movie that is going for the shock and taboo aspect of it, and trying to, you know, rationalize and explain it, I'm like, okay, cool. Then both characters should have had a scene naked. Like, not because I want to see, because I really don't. I don't want to see Grandma naked, but for the actual movie itself, for these two people to have that understanding and to go and say, like, no, we are one now, this is us, they really probably should have, you know? That should have been a situation where then you could have gone and said, well, you know what? We're not being shocking. We're not being taboo. We're not just being, oh, look, here's a 20-something-year-old with their tits out. No. Here's both of them with their tits out, and this is just natural and normal. You know, be matter-of-fact about it. You know, in theory, you could have the entire cast be naked the entire movie and have it not be shocking, have it not be, you know, specifically for, you know, a certain gaze for someone to jerk off to. Like, hey, there's that famous picture of the Vietnam War, of the little girl who has her clothes burned off because of napalm, and she's running down the street crying. Not really a sexy image, is it? But she's naked. Heck, it's an underage girl naked. Ooh. That must mean it's child porn, right? No, that's not what it means. So yeah, no, it's not, sexiness is not a matter of we have clothes or we don't have clothes. Even when the movie tries to go and say like, oh no, I want to be hunted, I want to be chased down the street, like, I find myself, but then when I have sex, it's like, the thing that really gets me, it's like, they're running away, I just tits bouncing in a skimpy outfit while the killer tries to chase them. And then I'm a slut, I'm a whore, I'm like, okay, you're a slut, you're a whore, being chased by a monster. No, that's not the same thing. Like, okay, like, every time this movie tries to turn the sexuality into a diatribe about why people watch horror movies, it loses me. But the actual love story of this character saying, no, 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 this movie was my sexual awakening. That's why I want to make this movie. That's why I want you. You were my girlhood crush, even though I wasn't even born when this movie came out. And these two lonely people finding each other, that is the much more interesting movie to me. This is Harold and Maude, okay? For those that haven't watched Harold and Maude, it's, a boy that's obsessed with death. And he goes and meets an 80-year-old woman who, they start a love affair. And there's satire there. Like, there's literally the guy that lost his arm in, I want to say Vietnam. And, just pull a cord and salute the armless sleeve salutes over and over again. And at a certain point in time, the ripcord gets broken, so it's just saluting 24/7 while horrible things and chaos happens around him. Like, the satire is there. You can be satire without specifically satiring a specific genre, So, yeah, you know what? If you're going to watch a movie about a love affair between two people of an age gap that are obsessed with death, Harold and Maude. It's also part satire as well, so if you want a satirical, death-obsessed movie, Harold and Maude. And I would say Harold and Maude actually goes further. I don't remember if there's any actual nudity in there, or if it's just implied nudity, like, oh, here's both characters naked under the sheets. But, yeah, no. I'd say a much more adept, not the word I'm looking for, evolved, no, nuanced, no, not necessarily better, because it's not really a matter of being better or worse. It's just, it's more itself. It is more a story about that love story, and the things that it satirizes and the thing that it is doing are not about other things. You don't have to watch other movies to get the jokes about Harold and Maude. You don't have to, already be a fan of slasher movies to watch Harold and Maude. You can just watch the movie, You don't have to understand anything else. It is its own bubble universe. No additional reading material required. To get the most out of sex and death at Camp Miasmic, you have to have watched Sleepaway Camp. Like, you don't even have to really watch Friday the 13th. There's more references to Friday the 13th, but you really have to watch Sleepaway Camp in order to get this movie. And really, not many people have watched Sleepaway Camp. So yeah, it is not its own thing. It is not its own bubble universe. It is a universe of references, of things that harken back to other products. Even, you know what? I'll put a link to the Forgetful Squirrels YouTube channel down here, because this was the one thing from our previous show. Our show was literally like 4 days ago. Everything else I thought we did was quite good. The one thing I disagreed, and after the fact I went, we shouldn't have done that, was in a thing of Scenes from the Hat. One of the suggestions was like Saturday Night Live theme scenes. And if I go out there and go, he has a condo made of stona, King Tut, Funky Tut, and people laugh, they're not laughing at me. They're laughing at, ha ha ha, I remember when Steve Martin did that back in the 70s. They're not laughing at us. They're laughing at their memory of something from 50 years ago. There's a difference. You know, this movie is so focused on referencing something from the 80s. Cool. You know, I've watched all those horror movies. I also wasn't born when most of them came out, okay? You know? So, yeah. When you reference something else, you're always going to be compared to it. And that never works well, because number one never mentions number two. So this movie will forever be number two to whatever it's referencing. And I feel like if it was just the love story, I would actually walk away with this and go, that was a great unexpected movie. I never would have thought I would have watched it. Like, really, the only reason I watched a movie this week was because I needed a video to put out. Because I thought, oh, well, you know, WWE had a pay-per-view Sunday, didn't they? Sunday night's main event? Oh, it's not this week. Oops, I gotta do something. So I only saw this movie out of a whim of I needed to watch something to explain to you guys. Or to make a vlog, for whoever has the morbid curiosity of watching these, all, 15 of you, By the way, if you watch it all the way through, just please tell me, I don't know, lava rainbow Jenga pieces is the secret phrase. So, just put lava rainbow Jenga pieces at the bottom to let me know that, yes, you watched this all the way through. But yeah, no. As I said, probably 20 years from now, this is going to be considered a cult classic, much like how Trick or Treat is considered a cult classic today. Even though, arguably Trick or Treat doesn't really make much sense, and it's not really the best horror movie, it's just the Halloween vibes movie, Sort of the same thing, Is this necessarily as good as Trick or Treat? I don't even know that. But, it's a referencing movie. But it's not, once again, it's not a reference horror movie. It is a love story masquerading as a horror movie. And, masquerading as a self-referential horror movie. So yeah, I'm not quite sure how this got greenlit, because realistically, there's no, but then again, considering I have no, as the credits are going and I don't know any of these production companies, I'm going, this is, the director wrote the script, isn't it? I have no idea if the director wrote the script, but, this is very much this is one person's passion project, and it's probably very self-funded. One of those sort of things, But yeah, overall, I don't hate my time with it. I'm also not necessarily sure, I'm ever going to watch this again. Okay, is it necessarily funny? Not really. Is it necessarily gory and scary? Well, it's kind of gory, but the gore's all CG. Is it scary? No. No, it's not scary at all. So yeah, which I guess is also another aspect to talk about. Why do we watch horror movies? Why do we go back and watch horror movies if they're not scary, Next bit. So, why do we go back and watch The Thing, or Predator, or Aliens, or even going further back, Jaws, or Psycho, or going further back, Dracula, Frankenstein, Creature from the Black Lagoon? Why do we watch horror movies? Because, especially when you know the scare is coming, and you know who dies and what happens, what is the replayability? What is the rewatchability of these movies? And I guess in a way, that is part of what Camp and Death, Miasmic Sects, whatever the name of this movie is, tries to answer. And I think I would like to just boil it down to, we're interested in the story. Okay? How many people have ever watched a Kung Fu movie and go, oh my gosh, it's the greatest Kung Fu movie ever? And then they watch it a second time, and now that you've seen all the fight scenes, you're just like, man, this fight scene's kind of boring to me now. How many times have you watched a comedy? You laughed your ass off. But then you go back and you watch it again, and it's like, now that you already know the jokes, it's no longer funny, and you can't stand the movie. And this is where critics and audiences' scores differ for things like comedies and kung fu movies and whatnot. Now, sometimes critics get it wrong as well. I mean, notoriously, The Thing was hated. But nowadays it's considered a classic. So, why are these movies? Why do we go back and watch them? Why do you go back and watch Jaws, even though you know the shark looks fake, and you know there's only like 3 actual deaths in the movie, and you don't really see the shark? Why? I'd argue it's because of the characters. You actually are invested in these people. You are invested in their story. When Brody, is doing whatever, and then his son is mimicking it, it's a nice feel-good moment. You care about this family. You care about these people. Why do you go back and watch, Friday the 13th, Part 6? Well, because you want to see, Tommy Jarvis have a good ending to his life, He escapes the insane asylum, and no one believes him when he's like, no, Jason's alive, Jason's alive, You want to see him get proven right. You want to see him have his happy ending. You want to see him excise. You want to see him get rid of that part of his life. You want to see him have a happy ending. You want to see Ash from Evil Dead finally just have a peaceful life where it's like, oh, it's done, You want to see, you're interested in these tragic characters where the werewolf, you want to see the werewolf not become a werewolf anymore. You want to see him regain his humanity. You want to see this, you want to see that. The good ones you keep coming back to because they're about people. And we want to see people. We are invested in their lives, no matter how messy they are, but we want to see them succeed. We want to see them make it, We want to see, it's tragic when someone we care for dies. It's a comeuppance when someone, you deserved it when that person dies, etc., etc. We are invested in the people. The slashing, the death, the murder, the fountains of blood, that's flavoring. At the end of the day, we're invested in human stories. Wrestling has the very simple phrase, personal issues draw money. It's a personal issue. So, I'd argue that as this entire movie is trying to say, oh, well, the only reason we saw this was because it was sex. Okay, but why? Why are we interested in the sex between these two people? Why do we want to see them have sex and not those other two, or those guys, or those ones over there, or whatever? Why are these two people, why are we interested in their sex life? It asks the first question, it doesn't ask the second. Okay, it's about sex. Well, why do we want to see these two main characters get together? Why are we upset if they don't? It asks the first question, it doesn't ask the second. And I think that'll be my final thoughts on the movie, because I probably rambled on for way too long. Yeah, what am I on, like part 6 that I've uploaded? Yeah, I'm on. Yeah, this is part 6 right here of this. So yeah, I've rambled far too long. One of these days I'll be succinct and to the point, and just, not ramble or not have side conversations with myself. One of these days I'll be very straight and to the point. But I will say that this is... I am happy I saw this movie, because as for someone who is part of the story that they're writing is a coming-of-age story, It's also a coming-of-age story that happens to be in the not medieval times, but I'll just say medieval times. So you have all this internalized misogyny, internalized racism, internalized, well, rape isn't really a crime, it's just property damage, and, you can't get pregnant if you don't orgasm, and all that other sort of bullshit that people actually believed, and unfortunately still do believe in some cases. You know, writing a story about the sexual awakening of a character, or that partially has a sexual awakening of a character in the story, that is something that is interesting to see how other creatives put it on the screen, or put it on a book, or do whatever. It's interesting to see, to me, how other people write. So I'm not upset that I saw this movie. At the end of the day, I'm still going, we've got someone who has never orgasmed in their life, and they're making a movie going, fuck, why does Jason Voorhees turn me on so much? And that was the movie they wrote. But yeah, no, outside of that, yeah, no, I'm not unhappy for seeing this movie. And yeah, but that's like my final thoughts here. I'm gonna leave you guys go with it, and I'll see you guys, I think this week is Sunday night's main event. So I think the next video I'll do will be wrestling related. But yeah, no, I'll also take a look at the Forgetful Squirrels down there, and I'll put it in the comments and whatnot, and yeah. So yeah, go take a look at the improv troupe out as well. In theory, there'll be videos, a couple of, I'm the one doing all the editing for the videos and whatnot, so there'll be videos for all the way up to September, to September 10th or whatever I think I have it set for, because I got one for each individual game of the show and the full show. And then hopefully there'll be shorts for the next month after that, hoping. But yeah. So there's that going on. So yeah. That's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, so please give us a like, follow, subscribe. Also give the squirrels a like, a follow, subscribe, all that sort of lovely things. And yeah. See you guys later. Bye-bye.